Hi, my name is Christina Strickland. I'm the managing partner of Rally Wealth and Benefits, and today I have Tatum Schuler with me. Tatum is one of the senior wealth managers on our team, and he also spearheads our investment committee. We wanted to make this video to just explain to our clients and to friends of our clients or anyone who may be watching, when our team reaches out and says, hey, we'd like to make this change in your portfolio, or we already did make this change in your portfolio, we wanted to kind of talk through what it is that we did and why we did it and how we picked our replacements. So Tatum, can you start with, if we are removing a fund from a portfolio, why are we doing that? How did we arrive at that decision?
Yeah, so we don't go into our investment analysis with the thought of, well, we're just going to replace funds for the sake of replacing funds.
Right.
We're looking at what we currently own in our portfolios, and we're looking for opportunities of, can we improve upon what we already own? Now, you can ask, well, what does improve mean? We're looking at, can we cut the cost of that fund? So every mutual fund, every exchange traded fund or ETF has an expense ratio. All things equal, are there funds out there that are lower cost? If we cut the cost, that's returned right back on top of your account. So we're looking at the cost. We're looking at past performance. I'll give the disclaimer. I'm sure everyone has heard it, that past performance is no indicator of future performance, but it's what we have to judge those funds are. So if we're looking at, say, two small cap blend funds, how do they stack up next to each other? Does one have a better track record from a performance standpoint than the other? That would be another criteria that we're looking at and consider replacing that. We're looking at things like tax reg. Some funds have a lot of turnover inside of that fund. And so, especially in the mutual fund side, the more turnover that the fund has, the more that's going to add to your tax bill if it's in a taxable account, a non-IRA. We're looking at the track record of the managers. Do they have a long tenure? New fund managers, they may not be proven. We're looking at that. Has someone been in that seat for a long time and they've proven that they do a good job through all market conditions? And some of the other things of when we're looking at funds of whether we're going to replace it is, how is that particular fund interacting with the rest of the things in the portfolio? Sometimes you'll see things like style drift. A fund will be categorized as a mid-cap fund, but high percentage of it is large cap companies. And so if we already have large cap exposure in the portfolio, we don't necessarily want that mid-cap fund. So that would be a reason why we would look to replace it. We're looking at things like style drift. They say they're value manager, but they have a more growth bent to it, or vice versa. So there's going to be a multiple criteria that we're looking at of whether or not a fund's going to get replaced. But then at the end of the day, it's like baking a cake. You want to have things that are working well together, and we're looking to improve upon what we already have.
And so if you've made the decision to replace the fund, there's a large conversation about, you talked about portfolio managers. I'm remembering, when Bill Gross retired from PIMCO, that I remember it was like days of people just researching, oh gosh, what does it look like if he's not the big wig at PIMCO, and the uncertainty around, would we still want to invest in PIMCO if it's not him? But here's the thing that I think most people need to think through, and maybe even the larger decision is, if we've ultimately made a decision to replace a specific investment, what are we replacing it with? And so talk to me about the investment committee. You and Kirsten do a lot of work. Joe does some work. Bruce does some work. But when you're looking for replacements, what does that look like? What are the criteria you're looking for? What are the tools you're using? Talk me through that.
And so, again, proven track records is I believe, important. You may have a newer fund that had a great 1-year track record. Can they replicate that? And so usually when we're evaluating, is a fund going to be replaced? The investment committee was looking at funds that have at least 3 years of track record, hopefully longer. We tend to get some turnover in market cycles, and we can evaluate a fund more soundly. But then the tools that we use, we've got a lot of good resources available to us. Some of the softwares that we use are Morningstar Advisor, FI360, Nitrogen, and we put all of these funds and the portfolios that we're thinking about putting together through those software and getting the reports back and the analytics back and the performance reporting back tested, obviously, and trying to figure out what's going to give us the most optimal portfolio for the different risk profiles that we're managing.
Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that's so important, and you kind of hit the nail on the head, is like we can't forward predict, right? We can look at past performance and we can look at what a fund or our portfolio's objective is and say, hey, blue skies and rainbows, we're trying to accomplish X, Y, Z. And then we can go stress test or back test and look at historical performance. Did this particular investment or did this combination of investments work together to provide that, right? Mm-hmm. The reality of the situation is we can't predict the future, but we can certainly look at the past performance and say, how did this perform based on, Russia invades Ukraine, Brexit, tariffs, the dot-com bubble, oil prices being, as low as $80 a barrel or as high as $120 a barrel. All of those things would obviously impact a portfolio. Right. And so it's our job to provide high quality based on the criteria that we're looking at in Morningstar, Nitrogen, FI360, working with portfolio managers that represent large companies. It's our job to use all of the available resources to us and try to, as much as possible, create high quality diversification. Yeah. And so what we wanted to do today is we just wanted to give a little bit of a behind the scenes on what does that look like. And so just know, if we're reaching out to you saying, hey, we'd love to change this fund, or in a situation like a Brexit or something that's a world event that's happening very quickly, the conversation may very well be, we already did this. And sometimes that's because you have to act quickly, or unfortunately you might be too late. So we just wanted to provide a little bit of feedback on when we make those decisions, what goes into that. If you have questions about your portfolio or your rebalancing frequency or anything like that at all, feel free to reach out to us. I know Tatum, myself, Bruce, Joe, Kirsten, we'd all love to have that conversation. So if you have any questions, reach out to us. Otherwise, thank you so much for listening.